Saw, it had a lot of balls. When I saw Saw for the first time, I was kind of speechless.
You know, it's incredible. They break a lot of rules.
He doesn't want us to cut through our chains. He wants us to cut through our feet.
It had a very twisted, compelling idea.
I'm scared, Daddy.
It's not the conventional horror movie. It was about human nature. It was about what happens when people are pushed to the edge and are forced to do things.
It's about choices, valuing your life.
It had an idea that, to me, hits everybody at the core. Anytime a movie can say to you, well, what would I do if I was in that situation? Would you cut your foot off? Would you not? What would you do? Anytime you hit at a primal, human, emotional core, you're going to bring people out.
It was a really good movie, but an unbelievable ending. Nobody saw it coming, and it gave something for people to talk about.
People thought it was one thing.
I wouldn't lie to you.
And then we're completely blown away by what it actually turned out to be and who actually the killer was.
In the end, you walk out of the theater saying, oh, shit.
Most people are so ungrateful to be alive.
Not a lot of movies do that anymore.
And that is the Saw trademark, and I think that carries over into the second film as well.
Game over.
My son appreciates his life.
But do you appreciate yours?
Take it easy.
Back up, all right?
This one is totally different from the first one.
Look, I know how this guy works, okay? He's playing a game.
Bigger game, more players.
You said that you've played before and you survived. It's a game of survival, basically.
It's a do-or-die situation.
It's not life.
What you think the movie's about is not what it's about at all.
Why make Saw 2? Why go at it again?
The audience wanted Saw 2, and we got so many emails from people wanting to know what happened to Jigsaw, what happened to Carrie, that we couldn't not do it.
The dead guy got up off the floor, so there was a lot of questions we left unanswered. What's he up to? What's he gonna do? Is he gonna keep going? Is he not? Is he gonna get caught? So all those questions we are able to address in the sequel.
Let the game begin.
It took us a while to come up with a great idea.
When Lionsgate came to us and said, hey, let's put a sequel in a year from the day, we had no script and we had no idea. And James Wan and Lee Wanell were running around the world promoting the original Saw. And we were like, what do we do? And in tried and true Hollywood sequel fashion, a script landed on our desk.
The DP who did the first Saw, David Armstrong, he was actually the one who got me this job, which is kind of crazy. I was looking at him for another project. He had just shot Saw.
And I really thought he had something that I thought would be really good as a director. And I liked his script. And I said, you know what? Let me make a couple phone calls. So I went and called Greg Hoffman. I said, listen, I met with someone I think you should meet with. I liked his script.
Darren Bousman. He had initially written a script called The Desperate.
I had read it, and I called my partner, Oren Koulis, and said, hey, I think I got a movie for us to produce.
There's a young director attached. I think we should get involved. And at the time, it was just maybe to get involved to make the movie, not for Saw 2. And he pitched me the movie. And as he's finished pitching the movie, I kind of thought about it, and I said to him, that's Saw 2.
And I was quiet for a minute, and I go, oh my God, you're right.
24 hours later, Greg Hoffman, the producer of the movie, called me. And he was like, hey, we read your script, do not do anything, do not do anything, do not sign anything with anybody.
And so we quickly optioned the script.
We took The Desperate and we adapted it to become what is now Saw 2. And so Darren was attached to direct that, and he became the director of Saw 2.
And because of David Armstrong believing in me, it's led to me being here.
That's how that got started. So it's, I guess good or bad, it's my fault.
It's different. It's taking the same characters and it's taking Jigsaw, but an entirely new direction. In the first film, Jigsaw was only talked about or seen for about 2 minutes. So where the first film touched upon about the madman behind everything, we actually take it and run with it.
Guns down an unarmed suspect, plants evidence, leaves him and his son hates him.
Shut the fuck up!
It's very much like Saw 1, where there is a morality that Jigsaw feels.
Salvation, if you earn it.
And he feels that they have crossed his border of morality.
Those are the people that he goes after to set an example, to try and change society.
Jigsaw, he does want to teach you. In his own twisted way, wants to convey a lesson.
He's testing us. He wants us to survive this.
And I'm sure all of us would agree that we don't really take the time to appreciate what we have, but we also don't screw with people like he does either, but...
I mean, really, it's just freaky that people could think of these type of things.
It's gotta make you say, oh, shit, at the end. You just gotta say it, or it's not Saw. I said it. Oh, shit.
And there's a couple lines in Saw 1 that were really accidental lines. I mean, but there's a line where Shawnee Smith says something like,
Help me.
and it's a very creepy scene. And we started thinking about, well, if he's really dying, we need someone to inherit the mantle. And we thought, well, how cool would it be if Shawnee Smith got to inherit the mantle, and a girl being the new Jigsaw.
It is I who will carry on John's work.
And that was kind of the genesis of how this all rolled out.
It takes the whole Saw scheme to a whole nother level.
Game over.
Cutting his arms up. You're still hearing it, right? So give me hands money, ripping these things out, and action.
Darren Bousman? Darren Bousman is amazing. He showed me this short film that he made. And after I watched that short film, I realized that I think they might have their hands on like a genius.
And we'll have the fake arm in the foreground. Give me 1 second to contemplate this. SWAT dies pushing in on you. I've seen electricity pop. He says, guys, look at it. What? Because you're not looking right through it. After you. And action!
Darren is another, as was the case in the first Saw, first-time feature director. Darren today is the same age that James was when we did the first movie.
He had developed this script for himself to direct, and just like we were willing to take a chance on James, why not do that for the sequel? I think the biggest mistake people make is say, hey, we had a success, so let's spend ridiculous amounts of money and hire a huge director. We kind of want to do the opposite thing and say, Saw worked because we took a chance on a guy that was unproven, that had a vision, and Darren was really the same kind of guy. He had an idea, he had a vision, it fell within the universe of what Saw was.
He has a vision. He's determined to make it happen. He wants to honor the first Saw, but he wants to also take it a step further.
It's the first time we're really gonna see you in this thing, and the camera's gonna come crashing down towards you into this. I've been a fan of horror for as long as I can remember, and I wanted to do a different take on horror. There's no Freddy or Jason, there's no crazy madman stalking you. It's real people put in situations where they're forced to become monsters, committing these heinous acts on themselves. It's not about the blood and violence. Yes, we have plenty of blood and violence, but it's the story about these characters, and I think we have a compelling enough story that will be the focus.
How do you like to be called Jigsaw?
No.
I think that's what's going to set this film apart from other horror films, is the acting. It is so top-notch, in my opinion, that it takes it out of the horror genre and makes it more of a drama and a thriller.
It was the police and the press who coined the nickname Jigsaw. I never encouraged or claimed that.
From being a first-time director, I never know how actors are going to react to me.
He listens to his cast.
If I get too close, then I
The dedication and the determination on Darren's part to make this as good as it can be, I think has paid off. The jigsaw piece I cut from my subjects was only ever meant to be a symbol that that subject was missing something, the survival instinct.
Darren Bousman is great. He's slick, he's smart, he's shooting a hell of a movie.
Darren Bousman doesn't do anything conventionally.
Pull it in. Noam, reach in. And pull it in. And look up.
This is Eric's apartment, and what's kind of interesting about this one is that as we move in on him tight, the camera moves up so that he's completely against the back wall, and this wall here actually is on wheels, and this begins to slide away, revealing a sewer tunnel over here. So rather than doing a cut, we pan right off of this, the wall moves away, and his partner comes walking along here, and we pick up his partner, and she starts to tell him all about the crime and what's happened.
You're talking, but it means nothing.
We were extremely lucky, and we ended up getting Donnie Wahlberg. Donnie is amazing. He came right to the table with ideas. He was very involved. He loved the first song, came right in, hey, I've got this idea.
Your mother gets to keep custody. I get to take you into custody.
Donnie brings the tie to real life and reality that, to some extent, the first movie didn't have.
I just think I should go back to Mom's early. What did you say? What, can you not hear me?
No, I can't hear you. Say it again.
I think I should go back to Mom's.
Well, then go!
My character's a guy who's kind of lost his way. He was a highly decorated detective. He's come upon hard times. He's kind of lost.
Oh, this shit.
We needed someone who could play calm with a lot of boiling anger under him.
Action.
And then also someone who, when the character finally explodes, could really go there.
He's got this attractive yet worn look to him.
Is this close enough?
When you look at Donnie playing this, you completely believe it, and I completely buy into it.
Let's talk.
Look closer, Detective Matthews. He asked for you.
Carrie, she's a smart girl. While she wants his help and wants him involved and, quite frankly, needs him involved, he's not really ready to go there yet because he's maybe still has some feelings, but whatever positive feelings there are, because of his plight, they've turned into angry feelings, and he doesn't want to be manipulated by her.
Don't ever pull some shit like that again on me at a crime
What
scene.
about the fact this guy wrote your name on the wall, huh?
It's not the first time some psychopath called me out.
Would you stop being a cop?
She sort of knows how to push his buttons.
Eric Matthews really doesn't want any part of me right now or this case. So he's kind of thrown in the towel.
You want to get to him, that's how you do it.
I reel him back in. Thought you'd want to see it for yourself. Crack-County County punks don't have engineering degrees.
Carrie's reprising her role from the first film.
Carrie takes over from where Danny Glover left off.
We don't have 15 minutes. You have to play by the rules!
The interesting thing about Shawnee's character, she's really the only person who's gone through one of his games and actually survived it. I think it was important to bring her back, and then obviously...
How do you know all this?
The notion of what happens to one of Jigsaw's victims...
Because I've played before.
...who actually survives and wins. Did she learn to appreciate her life, or didn't she?
I had been kind of shocked at it being a drug user and surprised at my own will to live.
If you pass this test, then why are you back here?
But I've had a difficult time. I wasn't being very good to myself. So this sets her up again for another predicament.
The great story about Shawnee, when we approached her to do the part of Amanda in the original film, she really didn't want to do it. She had seen the 8-minute short that James did that actually had that headpiece on her, and she said, I don't want to go there and have to pull that out of myself. And my partner's Oren Kulis and Mark Berg. I've known her for a while. And we basically twisted her arm and made her do it.
Oh, you're gonna feel right at home here, baby.
When they asked me to do the second one, I was thrilled, even though I still don't like to be scared. The note said not to use the key.
This is all a fucking big goddamn joke, and I'm about to end it. When I saw the first one, it was good, but when I read the second script, it was awesome.
We have Xavier, this big badass covered in prison tattoos.
You woke up there one day, and that was it, and the game was on.
I have to honestly say I was so intimidated by him when I first met him.
You know, the others, they're scared of you. Good.
But he is honestly the biggest teddy bear and the coolest guy. And it's funny to see him play such a badass and such a mean, angry, vicious character because he is honestly the coolest, nicest, funniest guy you'll ever meet.
I see her.
What?
She's the junkie. All for one and one for all and shit. You know, doesn't give a shit about anybody but himself. It's just me. And that's the way I like it. I get to go crazy, so that also intrigued me. It was fun. I really enjoyed it.
Which two people get the antidote?
Pour that out later.
He's all anger, he's all issue.
You got 5 seconds to get us out of here.
He's really the driving motivator in the house. He's the one pushing the action, he's the one pushing everybody. Contrasted with Jonas, is played by Glenn Plummer.
We found the door.
And Glenn is really trying to be the leader in a more intellectual way.
That's enough. That's not nearly enough.
He's more concerned with how do we figure this out? How can we all survive?
Let's just take our time and come up with a game plan.
It's a do or die situation.
Well, you come up with the game plan. I'm getting out of here.
There's an interesting way that my character kind of bites it. Ooh, buddy.
Oh my God. Jonas.
How are you? Okay? Yeah. Dude, this is the sexy new, me.
Jail. You said you 3 had been there. Make it 4.
Somebody's listening.
We have Laura, who's this really kind of cute, almost childlike girl.
Get over it.
What do you mean, get over it?
She is probably the most emotional character in the film.
This can't be it. Bullshit! You put us in here, you can get us out of here!
I think to Beverly's fans from Seventh Heaven, they're going to be totally shocked.
I was most excited about being a part of Saw 2 because it's something so entirely different than Seventh Heaven and what most of my fans have seen me for the past 10 years do. So the character was different, she had a little bit of an edge, and obviously the film has a lot of edge. So it was exciting, and it's my first horror film, and it's funny because I hate them. I hate horror films. I can't stand watching them, they freak me out. So this has been quite an adventure here, because this freaks me out. As much as it is a horror film, it's also very much a psychological thriller, and it really gets into the mindset of these characters.
I knew him.
You get to see a real true picture of them, and that's what I think is pretty cool.
You're the last person I saw before I woke up here.
It gives us a lot to play with, because not only are we bloody, but we've got a lot of things going on in our eyes and in our heads.
He kidnapped me in the middle of the night! Somebody open the fucking door!
We have Addison, this kind of tough as nails, really kind of sexy woman.
She is a stripper.
Nice and high for extra sluttiness.
I don't really trust a lot of people, which sort of comes across in the way I handle, my relationships with the other characters.
No, we can't stop.
They're tough and
Stop this bullshit!
have a bit of an exterior and wall up.
The only door you know how to open is between your legs.
Why don't you shut the hell up?
The characters are all each very different and interesting, and we've all got our own sort of history and why we're where we are in the story.
I can't trust any of you.
And I thought it would be an exciting movie to do.
You two are on your own.
We have Daniel, who's this 17-year-old kid.
Please save him the after-school special. Why are you such a cop 24/7?
Hey, it's called being a father.
Trust me, you're better at being a cop.
He's just like your typical stereotype of a teenager. He's just like a punk ass, and he's got attitude.
What the fuck's wrong with you?
What I like about him is that once he gets into one of Jigsaw's games,
I'm guessing you've never been arrested before.
he completely flips to the other side.
I mean, I've been in trouble a few times, My dad's he's a real hard ass.
It's now like this little wussy kid.
He's probably got half the city right now looking for me, just so he can kick my ass for disappearing on him.
You got juvie written all over you.
No, never been.
This is kidnapping.
This is definitely an ensemble piece.
First night, man, he wakes up. The next morning, he's in his cell with no window. Stop bitching about it and let's do something. I think we should all just calm down.
Shut up, shut up. I hear something.
Put us in a room together, and it's just magic happens.
Ain't no fucking game! My man just got his head blown off!
He's testing.
Who's testing us?
Jigsaw. He's mysterious because he's a trickster.
You watch fucking news?
No, who is he?
He's a magician. I was determined to spend the rest of my days testing the fabric of human nature.
He's not just a demented person. He's, at one point, was a normal person, and you learn what pushed him over the edge.
Jigsaw doesn't, in his view, kill people. He leaves all the decisions up to them.
Tobin Bell, I mean, he's a rock star for us because in Saw 1, and we originally talked about creating a dummy to lay on the floor for those 6 days. We shot in that actual bathroom for 6 days, and he laid on the floor for 6 days, only to get up for one scene. Yeah, he laid on the floor the whole time. And knowing this now, if you ever watch it again, he's on the floor the whole time. The makeup, the special effects, prosthetics and everything, which was 2 or 3 hours a day, putting the blown up, because in the movie his head's blown off, so there's blown up stuff every morning and then laid on the floor all day. So he's Bono in our eyes.
He begins to bleed from every orifice he has. Oh, yes. There will be blood.
You want me to angle casino lights?
This has become a passion project for all these people.
I'll kill you where you stand.
I think I'm extremely lucky for the cast that I have. Everyone is amazing.
And cut it.
Do you have to have that light on there?
One of the great things about this film, I would say, is the production design, and it's a really interesting process.
The stages are like a character of their own.
I don't pay attention to the sets. I think they're nasty and they're disgusting and they make me feel uneasy. It's really uncomfortable. It's really unsettling. You can't even begin to imagine.
They're really just dirty and old.
David Hackle, our production designer, I believe did an amazing job on this film. Even on the first Saw, we had no money, and we had no money on this film as well, although a little bit more than on the first. And David just really came through.
David Hackle, one of the best production designers I've ever worked with. He does so much of the thinking before I even talk to him. He's already thought it out. Where would camera go? Where would the lighting go? How would the color palette work with what we're designing to do? And I worked very close with David. He really made my job easy.
Saw 2 had a lot of challenges in their production design. We shot it completely in one studio, shoehorning our sets into this very large studio, but by the time you put 27 sets in here, it's not that big. In many cases, the back of one set becomes the front of another. And we literally had 3 weeks to build all of the sets. I think we have 27 sets in this one studio that all had to be ready by day 1. To make that all happen, we had to pool our resources as much as we could, in the sense that we had to call on other film companies to find out what they were tearing down so that we could take flats, set elements that were already dressed down, in many cases some that already had wallpaper on them, so that we could save time on our scenic treatment on the walls. Even if we had all the money in the world, in 3 weeks, we probably couldn't have built that many flats.
The house itself is extremely disgusting.
It's 100 years old in here.
It's just so creepy. I'm looking at the sets, and I'm just amazed. Things are falling apart beside you. You got these props that are dangerous. You just don't want to touch anything.
Down, action.
It helps you out so much.
What do we do? Hey, Darren, there's Darren Bousman. There's Darren Bousman, our director. Darren.
Hey? David Hackle, look at these great fucking sets.
Yeah, I'll clean them up. I'll try to renovate a little bit. No, a little coat of paint on it, it's gonna look great, just like new.
Someone ripped that picture over there. We might want to go fix that.
You know, maybe when you get paid, you can buy a nicer house, Darren.
Yeah.
I think this place that got you staying in kind of sucks. When I begin production design on any movie, I begin with research. Darren and I work very closely together right from the beginning.
We started talking, and it was like we opened Pandora's box. Like every morning to come into his office, and for hours we'd just sit there and we'd reference pictures.
The house that our people are running around in has a sense of a life that was once lived in the house. A history that would probably be from the 1930s, 1920s even. and yet at the same time, bring it into the contemporary realm where there was this feeling of it being a former crack house.
I want you to be disgusted by everything. I don't want you to touch anything. The second you leave this house, you would want to go take a shower. And that's one thing the first Saw had. That bathroom was just so disgusting, and I was like, I want to do that times 1,000. So he goes, oh, give me a night, give me a night. He goes home, and the next day he came back with like books, stacks of books on crack houses, worn down houses.
Come on upstairs. All right. Robert Polidori is actually a Canadian photographer from Montreal. He just was recently in Toronto with a photo exhibit of his photos that he shot around Chernobyl and all around the nuclear sites. And a lot of what he has in his photographs are reference to the history of a place, and he witnesses the life once lived, and that's what his photographs are really about. So it just fit perfectly for what we were trying to do in our sets, recreate this sense of history.
The hallways. I want the hallways to be brown, disgusting wallpaper, and I want the plaster to be wiping off it. And the next day he came in, he's like this. And it was amazing because everything I was telling him, like 1 minute later, he would come up with a drawing of it.
Our scenic artists did a fantastic job all the way through this house. They started by putting a base coat. As you can see in here, there's a base coat of what would have been many years of painting and overpainting. You get the feeling that if there was wallpaper at one time, the wallpaper would have aged and the paste would have turned into this really mucky yellow color. Here, I mean, this is just something that you feel like you wouldn't want to touch, although you can. The needle room. Can you see in here? Don't fall down there. Here's some of the paintings that we found in bunkers in Berlin. They were actually painted in air raid bunkers underneath Berlin during the Nazi regime.
You hear that? It's wood, plaster. It's not a fortress.
Jigsaw has come in and tried to board up the house in a way that these people could not escape.
No, no, no!
They might be able to get through the lath and plaster, but eventually they would just reach the brick wall. The scenic artist did a great job recreating the look of steel on what is otherwise chunks of wood with welds and adding a silver tone to it. Our carpenters and scenic artists put together beautiful panels that allow light to come in through the cracks, as well as look like they're pieced together out of pieces of scrap metal that were found all around the Wilson Steel plant by Jigsaw and then welded together.
No, it's okay.
And this is the dark chamber. This is where we see our first murder in the movie. We wanted it to feel like it's very subterranean, deep down in sewer tunnels. No one's been in here for many years.
Somebody really sick designed most of this stuff. This is supposed to be like Jigsaw's place, and it's like when you walk in, you go, some wacko like made this place, and well, in real life, some wacko did make it. Like, who thought up all this crap? You know what I mean? It's disgusting.
Jigsaw's lair was a blast to put together. I mean, it was almost more sculptural than it really was designed. Most of the set dressing you see here came from a series of tractor-trailer loads of set dressing we had bought from other movies. Really, we wanted to just fill the place up. The hardest thing is to have a script that says they walk into the warehouse and then have to fill an entire warehouse. Our studio here is 36,000 square feet, and when we walked in, there was not a single object in here. Trying to create the sense of a warehouse in a place this big is quite a challenge often when you're on a limited budget and you have limited time. And not to mention the fact that we had to squeeze another 25 sets into the same studio. I had asked the set decorators to bring me pieces that we could build with things that were from junkyards, things that were all found objects, because we didn't want anything to have the feeling that it was brand new. We wanted everything to be something that he might have picked up at a garage sale, something he might have found in the garbage, something in a back alley, just because we wanted it to have that kind of a patina, that kind of a quality to it. The old leg hold traps, barbed wire, the cages, everything in here, I wanted to have some age to it, because we wanted Jigsaw to have this raw feel where it becomes a little more horrific, that a torture device might be made out of something rusty or something kind of gnarly, like old dentistry equipment. I mean, what's grosser than going to the dentist? A lot of these things are relatively meaningless, but rather we wanted them to have a feeling of being torture devices. I mean, this is obviously his dealings with electronics. These were all Jigsaw's hobby tables. These are the things that in his spare time he's working on for the future. Over here you see the beginnings of what might have been a torture device for breaking a leg, for when the SWAT guys get their leg broken on the stairs. We wanted Eric and Jigsaw to have some alone time. So we wanted the SWAT team and the investigators to have to go off in another direction to really find where the signal's coming from and where the signal's going. Back in here, you see a cage that's Jigsaw's monitor area. This is where he's been carrying on his surveillance within the house. And here we wanted to have the sense that this was probably the manager's office within this big plant in the Wilson Steel factory, but then also bring in these found pieces of electronics that Jigsaw had thrown together. It was very pieced together haphazardly so that our police investigators would get lost in the electronics, not really having any indication where the signal comes from or where the signal goes.
We got a lock.
Okay. Oh, hey. Welcome to my nightmare, the Jigsaw bathroom.
Well, first of all, let me say that when we did the first film and we shot 6.5 days in the bathroom, when I called a wrap on that set on the first film, it was one place I never thought I'd ever be setting foot in again.
For Saw 2, we had to recreate the Jigsaw bathroom from scratch. We had to do it exactly to match the first one. It's sort of a unique thing to be a production designer and then redesign another production designer's set. Julie Berghoff did a great job designing it in the first place. I think that it looked fantastic in the first Saw. The detail that she put into that was just remarkable. I had the good fortune of Julie being here working just down the building in another studio, so I was able to refer to her, and we were able to just call on Julie and say, can you come over and have a look and tell us what you think about this?
Because the first Saw was such a low-budget film, we didn't have any real blueprints or anything to go by for recreating this. So we pulled stills from the first movie, from the DVD.
Some of the things we had to do here were recreate all the tile work, of course the damage in the tiles, the paint jobs, stains around the fixtures, and we had to find some of the pieces that of course started in LA and now we had to recreate in Toronto. Definitely a bit of a challenge. It got down to the point where we were literally counting tiles to try to figure out the sizes of things. 1, 2, 3, I think that pipe's 2 tiles over, 2 tiles up. Dan Hefner was giving me a rough time about it.
I was his worst nightmare for that set because I would come down every day and I'd look at it and I'd go, you know, it's just not right. There's something wrong. That pipe should be just 2 inches over that way. And you know, that was a little dirtier over there, that bathtub was.
I'd haul the set decorators back in here and they'd move the urinal 19 tiles up and 1 tile over and make Dan happy. But we got all the details right, I think. Vomit around the toilet, of course the heart, which is a nice touch from Julie. Again, our scenic artists did a fantastic job making it look exactly as it was everywhere. Everything was exactly as it was in the first one. And I think our team did a great job.
So we kind of pieced it back together again. And I was just as glad to get out of there the second time round as I was the first time round. And we pretty much left this set in the same condition as we did in the first movie, covered with blood and gore.
All in all, I defy anyone to find a difference between the first one and this one.
He doesn't want us to go through a chains.
On that beat is when we come back to reveal the back of him, contraption, him, beat, up, looking down, and then beat again as we combination zoom in, boom down. That's it in theory.
And then go down to them. That work?
I could be more creative, but I just go,
The look of this, we owe a lot of that to David Armstrong, our DP. He makes me look so bad, it's good.
The appealing things as a cinematographer to shooting Saw 2 is you get to work with a lot of color palettes. You get to experiment a lot. It was a romantic comedy, and you get a good flesh tone, a good look, and a nice lighting palette. Here, I get to play more. I get to play with colors and lights, and it doesn't have to make sense. You're in one hallway and it's desaturated and brown, and then you walk into another room and it's yellow. And in Jigsaw's world, nothing has to make sense. I kept the look of Saw 2 with some connections to the first Saw, and Saw 2, I created some new stuff. I sat down with Darren Bousman, director of Saw 2, and I said, you know, the things that were taught to me by James Wan came up with the green color palette. In Jigsaw's world, there's always the green. When we're in our torture chambers, it's got this green palette to it. People who have seen the first Saw will see Saw 2, and it goes right into this green trap room sequence, and you're like, okay, I know where I am. I've been here before, and you know it's not going to be good. Just want to get something in that mirror. You'll pull it in, flying back. Beat way back, and the camera's going to fly straight up for us to see you looking straight up at a big wide shot, and we get a whole sense of the contraption. After a beat of that, it flies down, and we fill the frame with the mask, and that will be our cut point on this shot. As you get into the house in this movie, that's got its own look that we created, which was a very dirty, brown, tobacco, desaturated look. And there's a lot of not lighting the eyes and letting the eye sockets go black, and just, you know, Darren really wanted to just feel like morbid and cruddy place. A lot of handheld in the house. And Darren just wanted to keep whip pamming from person to person to person and just keep the camera moving. When we were in Jigsaw's lair, it was more controlled and more stable because Donnie Wahlberg and Tobin Bell have a lot of conversation in this, and so we kept it really controlled. But as it progresses, it switches. In Jigsaw's lair, as things get more out of control, the cinematography starts getting more out of control. I really just can't spend a lot of time. I mean, I'd love to spend time lighting, but we would do 10-minute close-ups, 10-minute light shoot, 10-minute close-up light shoot. And it helps in the fact that it's supposed to be a grungy, dirty world, so I don't have to make it beautiful. But still, you know, dirty, grungy should still look good. Saw 2 is my first digital intermediate film. Everything I've ever done before this has been photochemical, meaning the traditional process. They take it to the lab, they make a print, they project it, and you comment saying too bright, too dark, more red, you know, and then they take those notes, they go make another print. 2 days later, you project it again, and you go, that's good, it's getting closer, we're getting darker now, and a little, you know, and you keep making those notes till you finally get there, or the producer says, we have no more money for prints. So it's one of the two. Digital intermediate is they take the negative, they scan it into a computer, and then with a very high-end projector, they project that image, and you can, with thousands of controls, you can manipulate the visuals to any way you want. To be able to stop and hold on a still image and go, oh, a little bit this, a little bit that, why don't you pull this, make it darker, brighter, it's certainly a luxury. That's what it looked like on the day when I photographed it, giving away my secrets. And then that's with our application. And whenever we're in Jigsaw's lair, there's always a green that lives around the sets. It makes life very easy, where I can just dial in the colors I want and have this plethora of colors.
Saw is part and parcel of a genre that's extremely sound dependent.
The film has got an R rating at the moment, but now they're adding sound. I think it would probably get an NC-17. Things coming out of flesh and going into flesh and blood going.
Sound is what creeps you out.
Intensity was a key word. So much of the film is skewed, it's twisted, it's bizarre. So much of it almost takes place within characters' heads that it lends itself to do things along the lines of putting strange, distorted radio voices screaming, moving from one speaker to another behind you. And you won't necessarily be able to pinpoint that exact element, but you'll feel something weird going on back there. There's clocks ticking, there's things whooshing past.
Okay, we'll take it from the top.
All right. Foley primarily is anything that the sound effects editors don't include in the movie.
What we do in Foley is recreate the physical movements of the actors. You get 5 or 6 steps in sync, and then you make a mistake, and we stop, rewind a bit, and go right into it again.
Go, 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 go!
We're gonna recreate the sound of some SWAT guys running into a building.
Go, 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 go!
Okay, take it on the interior. It's a study of character, too, because a lot of different actors walk differently or slouch a little or different nuances of their feet you gotta learn. In the opening scene, there's a big metal and leather mask and it closes shut. We have to do the sound of the helmet kind of moving around as he's moving around. As he lands, his helmet hits the ground. Use a little heavier object here. The scene with the syringes in the pit. Never really come across a scene like that.
It will be like finding a needle in a haystack.
I don't want to go sticking my hands in a big pit of needles, so we bypassed using needles and we just got the sound of the glass. And a whole bunch of test tubes here. When she gets initially thrown into the pit, we did a whole bunch of vials breaking.
It's just nasty.
In the movie, they used about 100,000 syringes. We didn't go out and get that many. Just by adding more tracks, it creates a fuller sound.
We bring all those elements into a theater, just like a movie theater you would sit in to view the film, and we start putting all those elements up. You're looking at upwards of 200 to 300 tracks worth of material, which eventually, in the end, have to come down to a 6-track speaker system.
You've got your music track, you've got your dialogue track, and all that stuff has to blend. You've got a guy who's got every sound effect in the world and has probably laid it into your movie because he doesn't know what you want.
I was alive.
This ADR line just sounds a little low to me. Should we try a little more on the I was alive? Yeah,
I was alive.
When you're on a mix stage, you're balancing all sorts of different things. And when you kind of throw it up and look at something, you have to be able to pick and choose your moment. What's going to creep you out in that scene? I like it kind of exploding as she's getting more, because then that cue's got some definition. It's got those like drum loops going and all that stuff, and that's kind of cool.
Okay.
And let that kind of explode in there. What we were trying to do is say, okay, let's drop the music way down in that part, let's bring up the glass sound effects, and then as the thing picks up momentum, the music comes in.
What the fuck's wrong with you? What are you doing? Come on, come on!
You play it all back together and it just sounds so great.
And it's just pumping and driving.
It's an art. It's not just a technical thing where you set a level. It's all part of that soundscape that helps give you a good soundtrack.
So some of the most fun, obviously, is hanging out with the cast.
I showered today. It's kind of a momentous occasion here on set.
You never know you're shooting a horror film when you're having so much fun.
Oh, very good.
You got screens in there. You know, we're running around bloody and just having a blast. It's a very, very happy place to be. Jigsaw's haunted, messed up house, and we're just having a great old time. Xavier is played by Frankie G. He is honestly, I think I have to honestly say I was so intimidated by him when I first met him. His codename's Cuddles. He is just honestly the biggest teddy bear and the coolest guy.
You said that was the best one. Thanks. So what we gonna do, man?
I'm the professional one of this bunch.
The sequel is a little different. It's more kind of like Punch Drunk Love with Adam Sandler. Much more dramatic.
Americans are fucking sick.
It's gonna be one of those movies where you go on a date and, you know, hopefully you score after.
It's only a handicap if you think of it as a handicap.
That type of scoring would probably include whips, chains, bondage.
We have a fun time, and it's such a contradiction from what you see. This is Billy. Billy and I have been seeing each other and hanging out every night. At the end of the day, I go home and I go back to the hotel, and it's so great. And we make sweet puppet love. I can't tell them that.
So much fun.
This ad's a change.
All the crazy shenanigans that go on.
This one is different.
When we were in pre-production, Darren got a little carried away with his SWAT. And when we were planning the scene, it was like, yeah, and I want 25 SWAT guys.
He's getting too fat. We can't fit him in the SWAT vest today.
6 SWAT trucks.
We have a SWAT vehicle that doesn't go over 20 miles an hour, so in the chase sequence, it's great. We have this 20-mile-an-hour SWAT truck. It's excellent.
And they're gonna come charging in from left and right, and they're with machine guns, and they're gonna bust things down, and I was like, it's not a movie about SWAT.
We're supposed to be enemies in the film, but, you know, we're all chummy until we start rolling, and then we hate each other.
Was that too rich boy for you?
I liked it. I liked it a lot. It's so believable. You guys are so mean to each other.
Hamlet was good, but a lot of people didn't come to see it.
But girl, look, you dead.
I know, but still.
This is the reason why I love working with these guys. It's just, I have so much fun with them.
This is the real reason why I wanted to do Saw 2. I mean, you can do things. You can scratch your back. You know, you can think. You know, you can scratch your head. Almost pick your nose, but the finger's a little fat. Yeah, I don't have that big of a nose.
We're having blasts and just have a good time. And we make movies.
Let's get out of here. All right. Go get a beer.
I want to play a game.
At the very beginning of the movie, there's this brutal homicide. This crazy contraption is on this guy. And through investigating, it's the same calling card as the first Saw. It's a jigsaw piece that's cut out of the victim. We quickly find out the jigsaw has Eric's son, Daniel, in a house with 8 other people with a poisonous gas being pumped into the house, and they have exactly 2 hours to find a way out of the house. If they don't find a way out in 2 hours, they're gonna die.
The only way out is to find an antidote. One is inside the safe.
If they don't succeed, there's a gruesome death.
The House of Jigsaw. It's a game combined with many games, because this is his house, and he's got booby traps everywhere.
If it's stuck, it's a trap.
Lady, this whole house is a trap.
There was 8 characters in the house, and we decided there needed to be 8 traps, where each character had their own individual trap, referencing their crime that they had basically committed against humanity, or the thing which made them not appreciate their life.
Once you realize what you all have in common, you will gain a better understanding of why you're here.
Now, we don't have a chance to see all of the traps because people start dying off, and we never see what their traps were.
I'm really glad that, actually that we never find Laura's trap, because I'm really afraid of what it would have been.
We don't even know what's in those syringes. You willing to stick yourself in the arm to find out?
Yeah.
It's very much like Saw 1, where there is a morality that Jigsaw feels.
Salvation, if you earn it.
And he feels that they have crossed his border of morality.
He's killing these people that don't appreciate how good they have it in life, as most people in America don't realize.
How much pain, how much blood will you spill in order to save yourself?
If they're really smart and clever and want to live, there is a way out.
He's testing us. He wants us to survive this.
By being in a situation where they have to fight for their survival, then they might appreciate their life. And that's where Jigsaw is kind of coming from.
Let the game begin.
And line.
This is all a fucking big goddamn joke.
Key.
And I'm about to end it.
Done. Go.
This is my first horror film, so the special effects here is great. The guy's head getting blown off, the needles in the arm, the burning in the oven. The effects are great, and it's interesting. You know, I just enjoy the whole scenario of it.
I know it was important to Darren and the producers to have better gags and to have better props and just to say, well, you know, look what we've delivered this time.
These two guys are the remains of Zepp and Adam from the first Saw.
He doesn't want us to cut through our chains.
The foot that was left in the corner. So we were lucky enough that somebody let us use them. They were from a different movie. They were doing reshoots. That's the same people. Greg Nicotero actually supplied us with all of the blood for the movie and these two bodies, and big thank you to him. The actual insert is just up the head, but we put it on a body because she actually comes in and sticks her foot behind the neck. I can't hold it. So this here will have the actual real bat stuck in it with gunk and stuff, and she can retract it. We have the baseball bat rig over here, and this was the harness that fit on his back underneath the clothing. And we have a balsa wood bat over here with rubber nails. And the balsa wood is to keep this extremely light because it had to fit on this rig over here. And we slipped this on, and we actually, put your head forward a little bit, David. We actually adjusted it to his head. Okay, put your head back. And on the day, for the reveal, it was him with some blood on it, and the wardrobe would cover this.
When you read the scene and it describes a bat with nails sticking out of it, that can go in many different ways, and everybody has a different vision of that. So we had to nail David Hackle down on the actual design of it so everybody knew that we were all on the same page. It's a hard wood. When you start driving nails into them, they'll just split. And then during the tests on the bat, we just realized that every time we hit it onto wood or onto a test piece of balsa wood, that the nails would just pop out of it. We started with the standard bat. This is actually a foam version that we had made. This is what the actors used for all their rehearsals so they could get used to swinging it. We called it the stunt bat. Then from that, we moved on to the stunt bat with nails. So this is a completely foam version. When the actors would walk around with it, it just didn't look like it had the weight to it. So we had to go to this version here, which is a real wooden bat with the rubber nails added into it. And as you can see, this one was used for one of the gags. This is the one Frankie carried most of the time. So when he was carrying it and walking around with it, if it just actually clipped him, it wouldn't actually rip his skin off.
And pull it out. When they want to get tilt down.
Then we go to the actual wooden bat with the real nails. This is what we used just for mainly stunts. So we actually cracked about 2 or 3 bats before we got it right. And these are, I guess, about 5 of the 14 that we had built.
I'm a tough guy, I guess, and so I often play these types of roles now because I'm severely limited as an actor.
Gus getting shot in the eye, that was a little prosthetic. This is Xavier's neck piece when he gets his neck slashed. And we used one of these, put the rip in it, put a blood bladder underneath it and let it bleed. Puzzle piece. We have a bigger piece here, which is a silicone wraparound appliance. And it'll be a blood bladder underneath.
There's a funny story of James being here the other day, and the puppet is now mechanical. When he was here, when he saw one, we used a fishing line. So he was seen muttering as he walked off the set that Darren Bousman gets a mechanical one, while he had to use goddamn fishing line.
So, his mouth and his eyes.
I love you too much.
Big wind turbine. My favorite game. It's basically it's a head trap scene.
Which is another variation of the one Shawnee Smith wore in the first one. It's more of a Venus flytrap.
I'd seen the first movie, and the thing that really stood out in my mind was the bear trap head gag. When I got the script and read through it again, the first scene, there was the other head trap, the new version of the head trap. So we almost had to outdo the first one because, you know, the audience is expecting that. And we just really wanted to deliver something that was cool and interesting and a bit different than that one.
I want to play a game. Think of it like a Venus flytrap. I'm going to give you a hint as to where I have hidden the key. It's right in front of your eye.
He's got a scalpel, a mirror, and he's got 60 seconds to basically dig out his eye and search for this key.
When we originally were talking about the head trap, he was going to be strapped into the chair and he couldn't get out of it, but it evolved through each draft.
We ran through a series of sketches and a series of ideas that eventually developed into this trap.
When I came in, I was shown a few pictures about what the concept could look like, and then that's where it kind of started.
We had to wait to cast the head because we didn't want to start building a prop that complicated without the actor's dimensions. Otherwise, it, could slice off an ear.
After Noam was cast, we had a head cast done of him. That's when the initial designs started getting a little more fine-tuned. They wanted a mask that was pretty form-fitting, so his head had to be in a fairly locked-off position when the thing closed. It was made so that it fit tight on him.
Tell me when it's touching either front or back.
Any of the things that Jigsaw made it was supposed to be made out of found materials. The chassis of the mask was made to look like an old diving helmet. The spikes are all rubberized, no risk to the actor. The mask, it was made out of aluminum and some plastics and composites and things. These two inner helmets come out so that when the mask actually did close, there was actually room for the actor's head to fit. Oops.
I started thinking about what would be sort of an interesting shape for a harness that could attach to the head gag. Jigsaw's not a belt maker or a harness maker. He finds things and puts them together. So we ended up with thick leather straps that are all riveted together as if they could have been a weightlifter's belt or other belts that have just been stuck together.
The big concern was to keep it lightweight so that the actor wouldn't have much of a problem wearing it around all day, because once we strapped him in, he was going to be in it pretty much for the haul. It was going to be a 2-day shoot, so we just wanted to make sure that there was enough room to keep him comfortable, yet not enough room so it didn't look menacing.
Help, someone! Camera will be moving around.
You'll pull it in.
And action!
How much blood will you shed to stay alive, Michael?
This, to you coming over here, to like freaking out with the scalpel, not knowing what to do.
Help! Just do it. Someone help me! Who's doing this? Ah! Fuck! Ah, what is this? 3, 2,
Now.
Good times.
Fall out of frame. This is gonna be disgusting.
needle room is probably one of the more horrific of the traps that we've had.
Hello, Xavier. I want to play a game.
He was a drug dealer.
The game of offering hope to the desperate for a price.
He has to crawl through the pit of needles to find one key.
It will be like finding a needle in a haystack.
I think Jigsaw says a line like, you will have to crawl through the squalor which you infect others with if you want to survive.
And I'm not going in there, so I try to pick out which one to go in there, so I pick Amanda.
And action!
No! Oh, that needle pit was just so much fun. I just loved it.
No, you're gonna feel it right at home.
That's the one that really gets to me because I have a huge needle phobia.
This was something that I think was just a vague notion in everyone's head at the beginning of the movie.
It's one thing for me to write it and say, oh, we're going to put a bunch of needles and it'll be easy and you'll jump in it.
Not that many people had processed it far enough to really understand what was going to be involved here.
You're gonna feel right at home in there.
The initial concept where she'd be neck deep in needles wasn't going to work because a person would not actually sink in this needle pit.
It would actually look better to have Shawnee fall a distance down into the pit.
How you like that?
It morphed into this kind of crawling through the needles.
Come on, keep looking for that key.
One of the things we had to do to aid in the stunt was we had to line the needle pit completely with foam to make it safe. We had to make the floor padded all around the edges so you can see that there's actually just soft stunt padding. Not to mention the fact that how do you make needles safe? We took these syringes and we took the needle tips out one at a time. We had a crew of people sitting there day after day pulling needles out.
And our idea was to get people in, probably take 2 or 3 days with 2 people, to pluck the tips of the needles out and replace it with a fiber optic tip. So the first day we realized that we weren't going to get anywhere near enough needles that were plucked and retipped.
Well, we did 20,000 needles and it barely covered the bottom of the pit. Then we got another 40,000 needles. So now we have 40,000 needles. We have an entire team. That's their entire job. They come to work to pull the needles out, to put plastic one in. That's what they do all day.
It took 4 people 4 days.
Then we have what, 60,000 needles? Not enough. So we ended up, I think the final count's 120,000 needles, and that still is not that deep. We had to fill it full of gunk and styrofoam to make the needles actually rise up.
We decided to add a few buckets of slime to the needle pit to really make it gross. And what that did was actually making the needles slide a little bit more. The needles actually moved around for them nicely and they were able to swim in them a little bit more.
And you could actually move through the syringes rather than walking on top of them. So it really helped us out.
In the end, they were quite gentle to the touch.
We ended up having to bulk it up more because we realized we didn't have enough. So we just ran out and bought another 300 boxes, and we bought the ones that don't have the twist ends. So those are the ones with twist ends that we'd have to take the needle tip out of. These ones didn't, so they just kind of bulked it up. So if you see here, most of these syringes don't have tips in them, so we kind of cheated the look. Then we would take our other syringes that do have the fiber optic tips and just dress those over just on the day, and it just created the more sinister looking needle tip syringe look that we were going for. So this is the end product of all the syringes and all our hard work. It's 4 days of people pulling them out, take the top off, pull the actual syringe piece out of it, then take a fiber optic cable that we had previously painted and cut to the right size and insert it into the hole and then glue it in place. These would bend. It's still a bit of a prick, but it doesn't actually penetrate the skin.
We had applied a coating of shellac and paint to the needles themselves so they looked used, and we even put a layer of blood on top of them so that they looked disgusting altogether.
Do you want to rehearse with Allie while we stick needles in me?
We had to figure out a way to stick syringes into Amanda, and we had to do that in a safe way. We took a real syringe, clipped the end off, and then it's the real metal syringe, but it's in more of a safe mode. Wardrobe came up with a great padding that would slide under her wardrobe that was plastic with a high-density foam over top of it. It went into the foam, hit the back plastic, and just stayed upright. We just had to be really careful that none of these syringes fell into this pit. So it was quite an ordeal to watch these and watch where they went, so to keep her safe, because she was in and out of it all day.
Okay.
I really like the needle gag itself. Not necessarily because of the makeup, but the whole aspect is kind of creepy. What we did was make these little anchoring plates. We glued these to the skin. And then we covered them with a little acrylic transfer that would cover the whole rig.
Just throwing on a spatter of color just to break up the surface and just sort of add some freckles and spots and help break up the edges. I'm just putting some irritation marks right around where the needles are going in. I'm just doing it with an airbrush just for a little bit more precision and a nice feathered look.
Once the makeup was on her arm, we would then insert the syringe.
Ew.
We built syringes that were extremely lightweight. The regular syringes would actually bend the skin, would pull the skin a little bit.
As a producer, that's like one of the greatest things. You hire the best special effects guy you can, and you say, I want to see 14 needles sticking out of Shawnee Smith's body. And they go away and do whatever, like voodoo they do, and they come back and they show it to me. And I go, oh, wow, that's really cool.
Which arm is the fake one? Is the right one? It's that one? Hey, Francois? Oh, can I see that in here, please?
We had to build an arm for retracting the needles. We couldn't pull the needle straight out of the arm. The actual pin had to stay on the arm. So we built a silicone arm. It had a very, very slight movement in it just to give it a little bit of life. And this would be for the retraction of the needles.
All right, let's see it back in frame. Let's just get it positioned.
Because it gets really, really crazy.
Action!
Bitch! All right, that's enough. That's not nearly enough.
Then we just go back and stick him in and redo it again.
So it turned out quite gruesome.
Come on, come on!
Let's talk torture for a minute.
The razor box.
There's some blood.
Working on the hand trap was a unique challenge because Darren had really come to me with this idea that somebody sticks their hand into a vessel, possibly a jar.
It needed to be something that once she stuck her hands into it, she was stuck.
We really had to sit down and think about this one, and I sat down with the prop master, Jim Murray, and my art director, Michelle Brady, and we ran through a series of ideas that eventually developed into this trap. We came up with this idea that the hand trap box was actually up in the air, suspended from these chains hanging from the ceiling. And when Addison comes into the room, she notices that there's a hypodermic needle in the hand trap which contains the antidote to save her life. Addison will either cut her hands off or slice her wrists, which causes her to bleed to death. The way we had to design the razor blades was in a way that she wouldn't see them right off the top. So we had to put in these little plastic baffles inside here so that she wouldn't be able to see them, and then a little ridge around the edge so that it would disguise the blades and would be higher than her line of sight. Now, of course, then was the practical note of how do we get an actress out of here once she's trapped her hands into the blades. Our prop builders ingeniously came up with this idea of a cuff that simply lifts up, pushing the blades back and allowing us to get out of the trap and dropping the blades down again. Won't that look nice, full of blood? As we were designing this box, we realized that as she starts to bleed out from her wrists, the blood will fill the bottom of the box, causing her to have this reflection of red light on her body from the light that's above the box, creating that perfect horror moment. What audience members might see, the ones who are really paying attention, is that just at the top of the frame, you'll see there's a little lock hanging down, and there's a key. And if she had have just walked a few more steps in the room, she would have found the key, which opened the top of the box. She could have reached in there and pulled this antidote out.
We have a pyromaniac who had spent his life playing with fire, and he has to walk through fire to find a way out.
Once you're in hell, only the devil can help you out.
The oven came from an idea of the basement of this house being something like a crematorium or a mortuary that had a cremation oven in it. We talked it over and realized that unless we wanted to make this whole place like a funeral parlor, it just didn't seem to make sense, but we still wanted to keep the idea of an oven in here. And we decided we would go with the idea that this was maybe the boiler of the house or the furnace that heated the house at one time. So we created an oven using cement board and tin, and this had to be an oven that was practical and fireproof in all aspects. The door had to close automatically when Abby grabbed the syringe inside. And then we had to have sides that could come off so we could look inside and see Abby climbing in as he's about to go after the needles. Special effects team put flame bars all down in the bottom here, and we had actual practical flames going on. We had to create a series of flame bars that could start very slowly and build at the far end and then move towards him. The furnace, the way we designed it originally was by building a computer model that we could rotate in all directions. Essentially, the director can look at any angle he wants. In this case, what we've done is we've indicated each piece that can come off and wiled away so that the camera can move in through the front end of the oven. We can look in through the side of the oven or do a shot for over the top of the oven. We could create a virtual walkthrough in so we can show the director exactly the shots he was going to get. Darren found this was a great tool for allowing him to actually visualize right down to the lensing that we were going to choose. And then we would take that and do our construction drawings from the computer model. We were able to create that furnace literally in 3 days. We had a tremendous construction team, and these guys built the furnace over a weekend. We provided them with the construction drawings on Friday morning. Monday afternoon, the furnace was finished. Our scenic team were able to do their work inside so that by the following Wednesday, we could film.
Like this. So that's the shot we're following sideways, but that's that room to be over there. So oh, okay.
Tim Bird did a fantastic job of selling the crawl through the furnace and then cowering into the far end as the flames start to take over. We also had a great stunt team working with us. I was quite surprised to see our stunt man literally crawl up to his neck into the flames and bat flames off of his leg, which was on fire. It was completely on fire with a bare hand, covered in fire gel, of course. He was a trooper. He really got in there.
Where's the fucking needle? Where's the fucking needle? I want the fucking needle! Burn in hell, motherfucker.